This here is another viewer's broken gaming PC. This one apparently turns on for like a split second and then turns right back off, which sounds an awful lot like a short to me. Now, you always have to be careful with these sorts of symptoms because repeatedly powering a system on over and over only for it to immediately cut back off again could potentially cause more damage down the line. We are going to have to try powering this on at some point, but we're only going to try to do that once because, again, I don't want to risk killing things in here. There are pretty expensive components housed inside of this Be Quiet chassis, including a very beefy graphics card and a relatively modern platform. I always try to quickly scan these systems in the parking lots when their owners drop them off, because if a simple fix is all that's required, let's say a power cable slips out, right? I'm not gonna waste their time, make them drive out twice to pick the system back up again, only so I could film a 20-second fix or flop episode. That makes no sense. That would just be cruel of me. I'm not that desperate for content or anything, but I didn't see any like obvious stuff missing, like out of place here. So I'm wondering if we have a power supply issue. Like the 24-pin 8-pin EPS, the 3 supplemental 8 pins for this beefier card, they all look to be fine. Even front panel looks okay. So what else could it be? We are hopefully about to find out. I hope you will stay with me.
If you're looking to upgrade your sleep, then consider NOLA Mattress. Assembled in the USA, their various options provide both luxury and comfort for every kind of sleeper. And since we sleep for roughly a third of our entire lives, it's kind of one of the most important choices you can make, aside from maybe your next graphics card. NOLA mattresses ship fast and free with 120-night trials and limited lifetime warranties for peace of mind, and are fitted for bed frames ranging from twins up to California kings. We opted for their plush NOLA Natural for our king frame, and it's made a world of difference thanks to its breathable organic cotton, cushioning latex, and Tri-Zone spring system for better spinal support. We absolutely love our NOLA mattress, and we think you would too. Upgrade your sleep by heading to nolamattress.com/Salazar and use code SALAZAR, again that's Salazar, to get $50 off plus 2 free pillows with select mattresses. This is a better deal than what's being offered on site, so jump on this now before it's too late.
Hello there, and welcome to Fix or Flop. If you're new, just know that this playlist is all about us trying to fix viewers' broken computers in the Orlando, Florida area. And we offer the service completely free of charge. We don't charge for labor or replacement hardware, and that's thanks to your viewership. So if you clicked on this video because you were curious, thank you so much for the support. That also goes without saying, if you or someone you know has a broken computer and you'd like a chance to have it fixed for free in this playlist, be sure to submit a form linked in this video's description. If you're curious about specifications, there is a Ryzen 5 5600X or G in here. The owner isn't sure of which. It's either an APU or it's not, but it shouldn't really matter here. There's an RTX 3070 in here. That's this huge graphics card with 3 supplemental 8 pins. That seems a bit much for a 3070, which has a fairly low TDP. The power draw is pretty respectable in this card. I'm kind of shocked that it needs this much supplemental power. I don't know. There's a Be Quiet Dark Power 12 in here. So if this is a power supply issue, could it be the Dark Power 12? This is a very expensive PSU. Really hoping that's not the case. There's an XPG Gamix D10 kit of DDR4 in here. So I think it's 32 gigs in total. And then there's an MSI Arsenal gaming motherboard. I've got the rig connected to power with no portable monitor setup. I don't think it's going to matter. Again, the symptom supposedly is that it power cycles very quickly within like a second or so. And so we're not gonna get a picture out even if we had a monitor connected. Let's go ahead and attempt power on. One moment. I swear I am not the one turning that power strip off. I have no idea why. It happens over and over, and you guys are probably thinking I'm just doing it for show now. I'm really not. I just don't think to check that because I never turn it off. There's no need for me to, but for some reason when I pull it out of the bin, it always is off. Here we go. Ah, you saw that? For a split second, I'm not gonna repeat this again because I don't like to repeat stuff like that with these systems, so I don't want to risk further damage. But for a split second, things lit up, including the graphics card. The fans attempted to spin, but it was very short-lived. And as cringy as I know this can be for respective owners, for me personally, these kinds of symptoms are honestly some of the easiest to fix. In most cases, they're the easiest to isolate. They might not be the cheapest to fix, but we're not gonna hopefully be traveling down rabbit holes we don't need to. This looks like a short. I suppose we should start by checking out what's going on behind the right panel. This is kind of dirty, by the way. We'll try to clean that up for him. So, I mean, some care was taken into managing. It's not perfect, but it's not the worst I've seen. Just gonna quickly go over some of the larger connections here and make sure that nothing is like halfway inserted into the power supply. This is a modular unit make sure that nothing is shorting against maybe like screws or anything like that. I took the entire unit out just so I could get a better look at these cable connections. The 24 pin on both sides looks clean. Same goes for PCIe 8 pins, as well as the 8-pin EPS. Although this connector is actually supposed to be like a supplemental one. I think the pinout is the same. So if you had like 2 8-pin EPS connectors on a motherboard, typically the first one you'd want to use is the one that splits in half, but again, as long as the pinout's the same, this shouldn't matter here either. Connections on the unit side also look good. I've seen this before where one of these slips out a little ways and then you get some really funky behavior. I haven't touched these. I've just, again, pulled the unit out and you can see these are all connected. And for extra peace of mind, let's triple check with our inline tester that the unit, what? That's like the exact same symptom that we saw for the PC. What on earth? You know, at this point, I'm not worried about frying anything else on the rig because it's all disconnected. Let's try that again. So standby seems fine. Let's power on. Everything is a fail. I guess this time somehow we're able to keep the unit on somewhat, but looks like we've got some serious damage inside the PSU. I hadn't even gotten around to thoroughly inspecting like front panel, other minor connections on the motherboard side. I was in the back of my head a bit worried that this might be a motherboard issue. We've seen shorts on that side of the equation as well. Those are a bit more difficult to narrow down, but it does at first glance. I just noticed something catastrophic has happened to this power supply. I'm just gonna show you. Does anybody see what's wrong with this picture? I don't know, maybe it's just the angle, the lighting that gave it away for me. I didn't see it initially. There is a broken fan blade in this unit. You can see it's actually up here by my left thumb. I don't know how it got up there. I don't know how it broke off from this side of the fan, but maybe that is what's tripping the power supply. It's possible that the board in here, power distribution, all that's fine, but since it can't spin the fan, it just goes into like a safe mode. That's a very curious thing. The unit is oh, there are a lot of small pieces just flailing around in there. I really hope none of them are metallic. If they are, this thing is completely doomed. I probably shouldn't even be holding it. I'm confused because this is a relatively new power supply. Like it still has the plastic over the logo here. I don't think this much matters anymore. We're probably not gonna be able to save it. How on earth is the fan inside of this cage, so to speak, busted up? Was it like this from the factory? I've never seen anything like this before. It is my strong recommendation that you do not repeat what you are seeing here, especially if you're inexperienced and not sure what you are handling. I'm just gonna remove every screw I can. I've never personally taken one of these apart, so it's gonna be a bit of a dance. I'm normally annoyed when manufacturers make things difficult to disassemble, but as we just discussed, I don't think for a power supply it's all that bad an idea. You know, they could though make it a little easier than this. Gosh, it's just like, things welded together. I think there's some clips underneath here that I can't see. There we are. So yeah, you can see we've got a very busted up fan blade right there. We've got some weird mounting going on in here as well. I don't think I'm gonna be able to fix just the fan. Still very confused as to how this happened. You know, I'm actually curious what the owner says started all of this. This gaming PC was working flawlessly, then it wouldn't start. It gives a quick power flash on parts. At one point it even turned back on, but now it doesn't turn on at all. It does the attempt to start, and then it requires either removal of the power cable or flipping the switch off and on. If this came out of the factory this way, there's almost no chance that the rig would have worked from the onset. So I'm not sure what happened between the time the rig was assembled and supposedly working just fine and when it decided not to. Surely at the very least you would have heard some sort of grinding noise coming from the basement area, like blades clipping, the broken off blade, the fact that the fan is now unbalanced, maybe some bearing grinding issues. I just don't see how this went unnoticed from the start. So what could have caused one random blade to break off like that? Ooh, more info. So I just texted the owner and asked for a little more information if he had it. I was just curious. Was it moved? Maybe did you move it from between the time that it was working and the time that it stopped working? Did you happen to have an elephant step on it? I don't know. Like what? This kind of stuff doesn't just happen. And it's important to note, I didn't tell the owner what's wrong with the power supply. I just wanted to see if he had additional context. And I don't want anyone to feel like they can't be upfront with me. If you make a mistake, if you accidentally kill your system somehow, just tell me. If anything, I'm gonna want to work with you quicker because I'm gonna be able to get that system up and running faster, chances are, because we'll know the cause and we'll all sing Kumbaya in the end. So don't be afraid to be direct. Hey, I made a mistake. I spilled soda on my rig, or I drop kicked it. I had an elephant step on it. Yeah, stuff happens, right? So the owner says that the rig was moved between the time it was working and the time it stopped working. That tracks, right? He says he lost his apartment in a hurricane flooding. That unfortunately is fairly commonplace here in Florida. He was on the second floor, so no water damage, but he had to move it. And then he asked, is it really screwed? Yes, my friend, your power supply is pretty much nuked. And then I wanted to just, again, clarify. So it was moved between the time it was working and when it stopped. He says yes. There is our answer. I suppose it's a good thing that these small plastic fragments that broke off from the fan blade are just that, made of plastic. In this setting, they shouldn't be electrically conductive. I don't think anything else internally has shorted in this unit, at least visually speaking. It all looks pretty good, and curiosity is getting the best of me. I want to try reconnecting this fan as is, outside of the enclosure, and see if we can't get some life from the unit. I am convinced, for some reason, that there is some sort of RPM sensor that is tripping the unit. That's my hunch. I don't know if that's actually how things work, but we're gonna try reconnecting this and giving it power one last time. This is gonna be replaced regardless, but yeah, like I said, curiosity got the best of me. This is for all the marbles. Oh, this is like really cringe. Just gonna hold the fan upright. Power there. Let's do power on this side. Nope. There's something else going on with this. Man, I thought the fan would fix it. There's like some pretty harsh clicking going on inside of here. It sounds like it's either coming from the two chunky capacitors in here or somewhere around the transformer. Yeah, it's definitely coming from this side of the unit. Interesting. So there's one area of this unit with our thermal cam that is much hotter than our surroundings. And it looks to be this right here. I'm not exactly sure what that is. I'm sure somebody in the comments will let me know. That's getting especially hot, and that's pretty much where things end. Nothing else in the unit warms up, so I imagine that's probably where our short is. Again though, this is far beyond my level of expertise, so I'm gonna do the simple and probably cost-effective thing in this instance and just replace the unit. I can also confirm this isn't a case of mixing power supply cables between brands or lineups. Having worked with several dark power 12s in the past, I can tell you these are the correct cables. Many of these leads are also broken up in such a way that they will only work with Be Quiet pinouts. This, for example, is the other side of a 24 pin, and yeah, there aren't too many that split things up this way. It's out with the old then and in with the new. Ironically, we're gonna be swapping to another Be Quiet power supply, although it's important to note here, of course, no unit is perfect, right? Even Be Quiet has some faulty power supplies. It's just how it is. And they've been a longtime product sponsor of this channel. I'm very grateful for them, but I think even they would admit, yeah, every now and then something slips through the cracks. It's why they have great warranties behind these to protect the end user, but also to bestow a bit of confidence in the fact that they believe in their products and they're willing to put a healthy warranty behind it in order to give you a peace of mind. And when you spend a lot of money on units like these, that's something that you should really look for, is a long warranty, because the last thing you want to be dealing with in 3 to 4 years is a faulty power supply potentially killing other components in your rig. This is a Pure Power 12M. It is technically on paper a small downgrade from the Dark Power 12 that he originally had. I'm going to try to make up for that somewhat with the fact that this is a 1,000 watt unit versus his 850. This is still fully modular, still going to run very quiet, and it's 80 plus gold certified. I'd also like to clarify, despite this original unit being absolutely cooked and still having the same branding, that is Be Quiet, as the unit we're replacing it with, this most certainly was not the result of some sort of manufacturer defect. I don't believe it came from the factory this way. It sounds as though the system's been through quite a bit here in Central Florida and likely was damaged during some sort of transport mishap. I cannot say for sure, but the fact the system was working fine originally and then somehow, some way in the middle of all of this, had a fan blade break off and then now no longer wants to play ball with anything. I actually think this is the unit's way of saving other components in the rig. We haven't tested the rest of the system yet. That's the next step in this video. But I wouldn't put this blame on Be Quiet whatsoever. I think this unit was working perfectly fine up until it was damaged somehow. But back to this replacement Pure Power 12M, it thankfully is up to date with the latest ATX 3.0 standards, so 12-volt high power connectors for the latest graphics cards are supported with this unit. Of course, up to 1,000 watts is gonna give him even more headroom than he started with, and I don't think he's really gonna notice any difference here. It's still gonna run, again, very quiet. I think he'll be very happy with this one. I mean, it's better than a broken one, right? And as usual, you can learn more about it by clicking the sponsor link in this video's description. I wanna thank Be Quiet for being a continued supporter of this channel. I will admit, I went a bit hog wild when it came to actually installing the new power supply and cleaning things up. I definitely should have, in hindsight, tested everything outside of the case. The problem was most of the other components, in fact, everything else in this build was still in the original case. And so apart from maybe just like plugging the power supply cables in out of the case, which it wouldn't have really saved me all that much time, there wasn't much else I could really do here. So I went ahead and just fully installed the power supply, got everything wired up, and then also noticed that there were an extra 2 deep cool fans in this case. They were added after the fact. So this PureBase 500 comes with 3 140mm PureWings 2 fans, and I decided to move 2 of those to the front for a more uniform look, and the 2 LED deep cool fans would be mounted up top just for more even distribution of light. It was kind of messing with my OCD the other way. I just think this is, again, a more uniform look, but the viewer is welcome to change it back if he wants. And as you can see, we are ready to just fire it up as is. I'm really hoping that nothing else in this rig is dead. I hope that the Dark Power 12 that kicked the can had protections in place and did the right thing by not damaging anything else in the process. That said, I cannot speak for how this system was handled beyond what the power supply experienced. I'm just worried that if the power supply experienced trauma, did anything else in this system? I do not know. Let's hope for the best. Okay, well that's a good start. It doesn't power off right away. I'm curious if this will boot into Windows. I don't know if we even have Windows on any of the drives in here, or if there are even drives installed for that matter. I didn't pay close attention, but it does look like it's stable now. That's a relief. All right, are we gonna get picture? Come on. Give me something. I really hope we don't have like a dead graphics card or anything. It doesn't look like it's gonna post. Wow. What a bummer. All right, mood just totally shifted. I thought this would do it. One problem solved, yet another to tackle. At least now we have stable power, so it doesn't just immediately cut off. There is one big clue that I just noticed on this motherboard, and that would be this set of debug LEDs here. The LED illuminated currently is for the CPU. I'm wondering, maybe we have some sort of BIOS incompatibility? I'm gonna try clearing the CMOS, maybe something simple will fix it. I really hate it when motherboard vendors put the jumpers in stupid places. Nope. And still the same lit CPU debug LED. I wonder if it's something simple. I know that's not gonna focus, but the 8-pin EPS for CPU power is definitely inserted. Likewise on the power supply side, and this is a brand new unit. I really didn't want to have to remove the CPU cooler. That is looking like what it's coming to, and unfortunately to remove that, I need extra space. That means this chunky graphics card also has to come out. And you can see someone made a bit of a mess. That is thermal paste on CPU cooler fan blades. A little icky. What do we have here? It looks like a Ryzen 5 5600X. Its underside is pretty clean, no thermal paste spillover, and all of the pins are physically present and unbent. The socket also looks pretty good. Not sure why there's some weird texture from your angle. From mine, it looks very clean. There is one, looks like human hair right here. I'm gonna scoop this up. That shouldn't be in the socket. I would be awfully surprised if this little thing caused any problems, but it is worth a retest. While we're here, we can also test CMOS battery voltage. How we doing? Looking good so far. Voltage is a little low, but we'll swap this off camera. If this doesn't work, we'll move on. Moving on, I happen to have an exact replacement AMD Ryzen 5 5600X of my own. I suppose we can throw this into his platform and cross our fingers. Did that nuked power supply take other things with it? We are about to find out. Also just realized while reinserting his graphics card, this is actually an RTX 3070 Ti, not a vanilla 3070, which would explain the 3 8-pin, still overkill, I think on paper for a 3070 Ti, but that's worth noting. I really don't want to put this beefy CPU cooler back on if we end up having to swap motherboards, so we're gonna quickly power on as is without allowing the chip to get too warm I don't advise doing this if you're not familiar with PCs, working around them frequently. We'll just keep our hand lightly over the IHS to make sure things aren't getting too hot. Let's try powering on and seeing if we get a post with the replacement CPU. Also curious if the chip gets hot. Yep, so it is warming up. That's a good sign. It's getting some power. Are we gonna see anything? Oh, come on. So I assume his CPU is fine. It may be dead, but maybe that something else is also dead, probably the motherboard. Motherboards, unfortunately, tend to be one of the first victims when a power supply kicks the can. Since it's attached in multiple places to the PSU in question, it is usually fairly vulnerable if the protections are not strong enough, or if something catastrophic happens, like a power surge or something, if it's been knocked around violently, that really blows. We have to take everything apart now to get this motherboard out of here. But it's getting late. I think I'm gonna save this for tomorrow. I'll see you then.
Day 2.
Special delivery. 5 motherboards in here. I figured I'd order extras just because, well, we run into a lot of dead motherboards in this series. I found each of these on Amazon for $109, $109.99. I think that's pretty sweet for Gen 2 B550 motherboards. These are gonna come in very, very handy. What are these? Gaming XV2s, if you're interested. I have already let the owner know that if we have multiple things wrong with this rig, like if I find, for example, the graphics card, the motherboard, the CPU, and the power supply are all bad, and we've already replaced one of those, then I'm not gonna be able to replace all of them. I can't rebuild entire systems in this playlist. What I can do, though, is let him know which components are dead and which need to be replaced. That's really the one issue keeping a lot of folks from being able to properly troubleshoot their rigs, is they just don't have a lot of spare hardware to test with. That is where I come in handy. Again, this thing is super beefy. It would be a real shame if something were to happen to this. And you never really know with defective power supplies. Since we have to remove his graphics card anyway to swap motherboards, I'm gonna go ahead and just give it a shot here with our known working GT1030. Really hoping this doesn't work because I don't have extra 3070 Ti's laying around. Let's try for a post this time, of course, with the HDMI cable still plugged into our discrete card. I'm gonna get any picture out. Doesn't look like it. And again, logically speaking, with the debug LED still illuminated for the CPU, it wouldn't make a ton of sense for the graphics card to be an issue. But again, since it's all coming out, it might as well do a quick swap just to be sure. Also not sure why I didn't think of this any sooner. Since the motherboard we're working with is a B550 chipset, it is possible, unlikely, but possible that it won't work natively with 5600Xs or any 5000 series Ryzen processor if the BIOS revision is outdated from the factory, if it's like say an early revision, so it shipped with a BIOS that only supported chips that existed at the time. So I'm gonna try my Ryzen 5 3600 in a last-ditch effort. I'm really trying to find an excuse to not swap motherboards, but it's looking like that's where we're headed. I'm fairly surprised, despite this being a more budget-oriented B550 board, it doesn't look very different aesthetically from the MSI board already in here. I suppose while we're in the middle of this, I should mention the elephant in the room. My haircut is actually not totally finished. It's a little unsculpted, makes my head look an interesting shape you're probably not used to seeing on the channel. And that's because I dropped it right when I noticed that the motherboards arrived. I stopped cutting my hair. I actually cut my own hair most of the time. Some of you probably can tell. But it saves me some time, saves me some money, and that's what I've been doing since probably my freshman year in college. Whoa, and if you look closely here, you can see this M.2, I was about to remove it from his board, is covered with layer upon layer of very thin thermal pad. I don't feel like that's a very good idea. Ooh, we still have the plastic cover on each of these pads. He just stacked thermal pads on top of each other and didn't remove the plastic over each. So you've got just like conductive layer, insulating layer, conductive, insulating. Like the heat's not able to travel anywhere because you've still got plastic on these. Oh my goodness, yeah. Definitely doing more harm than good here. Let's go ahead and get this installed in the replacement board. You can probably see I've already gotten the CPU and his RAM in there. Replacement board is finally in. Nothing's bolted down. I don't even have the CPU cooler attached because I don't want to go straight into the deep end with this one. I'm not even sure if a motherboard swap is going to fix this issue. I've got my graphics card in here. We'll swap his in if we can get a post like this. At this point, I must confess, the rig's on. The chip is getting hot. I get very annoyed when rigs like these have multiple issues. It becomes very difficult to troubleshoot and takes a lot longer. I want wins, and right now I'm not getting a win. This is still not working. What is going on? His original CPU and a replacement motherboard not working. All right, power's off. Make sure it's off, and I'm just going to swap in my known working chip. Actually, I'm gonna swap in, yeah, I'll stick to the 5600. I think, actually, yeah, so the boards I had bought from Amazon, the one that's in here, they support 5000 series processors out of the box. So that's good to know. Shouldn't need a BIOS update for any of these to work, so I'm gonna stick with my 5600X. And see if my chip works. Does he have a dead motherboard and a dead CPU? Boy, oh boy, that would suck. And that would mean that we'd have to replace 3 things. 3 pretty crucial parts of this rig to get it up and running. Really hoping that's not the case. Oh, that was weird. I've never seen that before. The case lights flash 3 times pretty fast. It's like it's trying to tell us something. And it doesn't want to play ball. Heck, my own working chip doesn't want to play ball with a new motherboard and a replacement graphics card. The only other vital component touching anything in here, other than his storage drive, which I don't think is to blame, not for a no post anyway, is his memory, which I didn't isolate earlier, probably should have because it was super easy to do. But these DIMMs, could they be the cause? Surely it isn't that simple. I'm gonna try one of my known working DIMMs. If this doesn't work, then we are missing something very obvious here. Like I don't understand why the case is blinking at us, because the case is just connected to PSU power. Like it's not communicating, at least it shouldn't. I haven't plugged any of the RGB into the motherboard. So there's no way you can communicate with the platform to know anything on the platform side is bad. Maybe, I don't know. I hope this works. It posted. Posted. The chip was getting pretty hot. I was about to cut it off just because I couldn't touch it any longer. That was a post. Now this doesn't really answer anything yet because everything in this rig, apart from his M.2, is actually my stuff. And I know my stuff works, so that shouldn't be much of a shock. Definitely a bit worried about this kit, or is it multiple kits, or is it one big kit? It's half of a big kit. So this is actually from an 8-stick kit. And it's possible 1 or more of these could be defective. That would be odd. We don't usually run into dead DRAM modules in this playlist. Yep, the boot procedure is pretty much mirrored in this instance. The fans have ramped down. It does sound like it's going to post. That's good news. We don't have a dead CPU. I really hope I'm not speaking too soon here. Come on, give me a post. Yes, there it is. All right, that was our post. Again, chip was getting hot. So we can, oh gosh, did I just buy motherboards for no reason? Still multi-issue PC here, which did prove to be a little more difficult to narrow down, but I completely skipped over replacing DRAM. It didn't seem like a DRAM issue, and to be fair, his motherboard had the CPU light illuminated, not the DRAM light, which is why you shouldn't always trust those. Oh, jeez. That just makes me look silly. Wow. I'm leaving it in. I'm not gonna cut this part out. I definitely went the long way around to troubleshoot a multi-issue system. His motherboard is in this rig currently. It's totally fine, as is his CPU. I'm sure his graphics card's fine as well. I have that sitting off to the side, but we'll get that in here. And I guess his DRAM, for whatever reason, maybe one or more of his modules is bad. I'm gonna leave this in, by the way. This is part of the series, me making a fool of myself sometimes, overlooking the very simple things. Usually I isolate DRAM super early on. I was thrown off by the debug LED on this board. I'm gonna use that as my excuse. I'm not sure why I trusted that as gospel. I should have removed his DRAM just to be on the safe side. This is why it's important to have a list when you're troubleshooting. Start with the simple stuff first if you have replacement parts on hand to isolate with. It just makes your job much easier, and it makes you much more confident if and when you have to dive deeper into the rig, say into the main board or the CPU. I'll take the time to clean up some of this excess thermal paste on the CPU cooler now that we know most of this stuff still works. Beefy 3070 Ti all hooked up, and we're ready for power on. Honestly, can't believe I've made this mistake. It has cost me dearly in terms of time, but I have learned a thing or two, and hopefully you have too, assuming this works and I haven't just jinxed myself. Never trust debug LEDs fully. Now, they do help in most instances, kind of like pointing you in the right direction. They can be helpful. I'd rather have them than not, let's put it that way. But don't just follow them, wholeheartedly, because it could cost you a lot of time. This rig should be settling down. Oh, you know what? It would help if I connected an HDMI cable.
A few moments later.
We're on the desktop now, so that's refreshing. And that also tells us that our graphics card here is A-okay, or at least stable enough to load into Windows and display a steady picture out. So that's a win too. And I suppose without getting too far ahead of myself, I should also mention the kit of RAM I'm gonna be swapping into his rig, because we were just using the Corsair Vengeance placeholder to test. This is a set of G.Skill Trident Z DDR4, and it's gonna look pretty nice in his rig. I've actually had these for quite a while. They've just been sitting and collecting dust. Happy to put them to good use. And in case you're wondering, the original DDR4 stick that doesn't play nicely with any system, including the owner's, is this one right here, which looks just like the other three, but for some reason, this one throws the CPU debug LED on this board. It doesn't work with any of my boards either, and in any slot in any of those boards. Kind of a finicky thing. I'm also slightly annoyed by the fact that the CPU debug LED is lit for this scenario, where you would expect, intuitively, the DRAM LED to be illuminated. Aha, and you know what? This would be why right here. We've seen this before in the playlist, a dislodged SMD. Probably a quick fix. I'm assuming that's the only issue with this DIMM. I'm gonna return this to the owner if you'd like to get somebody to fix that. My soldering skills are not that fine, but yeah, it shouldn't cost more than, I would say, 20, 30 bucks to get someone knowledgeable to take care of that, and this DIMM should hopefully be back up and running. Thankfully though, with our replacement DDR4 kit in here and slots A2 and B2 for dual channel, you can see that we are up and running without issue. This one was definitely a doozy then. Busted up power supply for starters. That one was fairly easy to diagnose, but the broken SMD on a random DRAM module. I've seen this a few times before, usually on the back of some sort of improper install. If maybe the owner hasn't lined up the DIMM properly with the slot in question, the slot ridges can hit those SMDs, dislodge them, and then give you symptoms like we just saw. Unfortunately, the debug LED illuminated was for the CPU, and that led me astray. I should have followed my intuition instead of simple LEDs on a motherboard, but there you go. You learn something new every day. This was a frustrating one, but one that has taught me quite a bit. Hopefully you've learned a thing or two as well. If you've enjoyed watching this one, be sure to let me know by giving this one a thumbs up. That would be greatly appreciated. Consider subscribing, clicking that red button down below if you have not already, and leaving feedback in the comments section. If you or someone you know, again, has a broken PC and take a chance to have it fixed for free in this series, be sure to submit a form linked at the top of this video's description. I'm gonna get out of here now. This one has taken far too long. It's mostly me to blame, but I'll see you in the next one. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning with me.